Hello, everybody. This is Nicoa. This is just a quick precursor to this interview. Jenna Pacelli is the most amazing, most well-trained professional trauma therapist and somatic experience leader that I've ever met. And she references in this interview the loss of a love at a young age. And due to some technical difficulties, the portion where we reference that loss had to be edited out. So I just wanted to let you know that a large portion of this dialogue has to do with that grief and learning how to re-embody love for herself and embody her way of being to process that grief and then move forward in her world as a professional therapist. And I just know that you're going to find it a profoundly interesting interview. So just be aware that you're going to be listening and you're going to think, wait, what? Did somebody pass away? And yes, the love of her life passed away at a very young age. And that's what she's referencing. So stay tuned. I know you're going to get some really beautiful Life by Design nuggets, and I highly recommend that you support her in any way, shape, or form. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. Grab your coffee and join me, Nicoa, for a caffeinated conversation about life. I'll be talking to people who have chosen to walk their own paths and, just like me, are creating a life by design. I hope it will give you the inspiration you need to do exactly the same. I know, it told me that, okay, we don't have to do that. It told me to do it. I love that. We're already recording too. This is amazing. Okay, guys. So we're like on the phone because something weird happened with my computer. So here we go. Oh, and it says I'm like 99% uploaded. Ah, yeah. Let y'all all wonder who I'm talking to. Jenna Pacelli. Woo! Woo, woo. Okay, tape 9,421. Yes. I'm ready, Jenna. Are you ready?
Great. I'm ready.
Okay, good. This is no longer relevant.
Okay.
I was like, why can't I?
Everything's changing. Yeah.
Everything's changing. And so everybody, I'm going to do the quick intro because I do not want to waste one more minute of Jenna's amazing, time that she's given to us. This is very generous of her. She has a very big life, and I want to tell you who she is. Now, she did send me a very blah, blah, Jenna, psychotherapist, blah, blah, intro and bio. And I was like, no. Of course, everyone knows I stalk my guests. And here is the introduction I would like to share with everybody. Jenna is a clog and dog obsessed, essential oil loving, somatic psychotherapist, trauma-informed yoga teacher, wellness entrepreneur, and neuroscience aficionado. Oh, and outdoor enthusiast. She's helping all of us find freedom from stress and trauma. Did that summarize you well?
Yeah. Yes, it is. It does. I'm like, I wrote that so long ago. It's like, I tend to forget it's there. And also, yes, I still love all those things. And, have sprained my ankle enough that I don't really wear clogs so much anymore.
Okay. So actually a minute ago when I was joking about the clogging, when you said clogs, it still had not occurred to me that you just meant clogs that you wear.
Clogs.
Like clogs.
Yes. Clogs. Because there's this, God, I love this company called Briar Clogs. They're in San Francisco. They're an all women owned, very inclusive company. They hand make these clogs. I'm obsessed, and I have been obsessed with their clogs. And they're just these like gorgeous things. I really love fashion. I really love art. I really love culture and theater and music. And so I think it's just sort of it's a little nod to some of that. But yes, I
think it's funny because I'm from the South, and when you said clog, I'm like, clogging? Does she clog?
Clog, like logging?
No, like clogging, like it's a tap like dancing.
Oh.
Y'all.
Yeah. No, this is just a
culture disconnect.
Yeah, it's kind of big in San Francisco. It's like I'm originally from the Bay Area.
I figure. I
went to grad school there. And,
I saw that. Yeah, so you have this really interesting background, and I want you to tell all of your story. But let's just start, just for our listeners, by sharing a little bit about what's been going on in your world right now, because you have a big following. healing, and you've been doing a lot of great work, a lot of stuff about being, the adult daughter of a narcissistic mother and all that type of healing. Why don't you tell us what's going on for you in your world right now?
Yeah. Well, I currently live in Bend, Oregon, which, if you're familiar, it's on the other side of the Cascades from Portland. So we get sunny weather. But it snows. It's high desert, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I live 2 blocks from a river. I have to be by water, and I have a business that is my baby. I've got a private practice where I see folks one-on-one, and I do group work, and I am producing more and more online content to support a wider or a larger number of people, especially just that, make this work accessible, whether it's my Substack articles, it's, you can read a lot of those for free, or you could pay $8 a month, which is, in San Francisco, that's like a latte and a half.
Exactly.
Not even.
It's totally worth it. I looked at some of your articles. You've done really great work, and you do speaking engagements, and, I really think the embodiment work that you're doing is very powerful. I'm a somatic coach as well, and have not as much history or background as you do, but that is getting the person to stop being a talking head and getting them into their body. I mean, you're doing some embodiment workshops. Is that right?
Yeah. So I have my Substack that I write weekly with nervous system practices in there. Then I also have a weekly-ish 2-hour workshop for the adult children of narcissistic and emotionally immature parents. I keep it really affordable, so lots of people can attend. And then I have a longer 6-month group that people can work with me in, and that's that's been a really cool process to, continue to evolve that group. And then I've got really pretty intensive one-on-one work. That's kind of where I'm at. It's people have to be really ready to step into the one-on-one work with me.
Oh, I'm sure the willingness piece is pretty critical. When someone really is ready to get over those blocks that have been holding them back or causing them traumatic reactions and triggers in their life, you have to be really ready. And you might complain about it. Yes. I mean, one of the things I find, and you may find this too, that can help you determine if someone's ready, is how much time they spend arguing for their limitations.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
Because they're afraid.
Totally.
Right?
Yes.
They're afraid.
Yes.
But you didn't come to this overnight, I'm assuming.
No.
Couple of questions come to mind. I don't know if you would talk about it, but are you an adult daughter of a narcissistic mother? And do you want to talk about that? And how did your journey get you here?
Yeah. Well, I've learned a lot through my family system, and I've learned a lot through helping other people navigate these dynamics. And I have learned, and then I have specialty training on narcissistic personality disorder and borderline personality disorder. I'm trained at the master level in NARM, which is neuroaffective relational model. And that's an advanced, I would say, relational developmental trauma training. And then of course, somatic experiencing, which is my deep, deep love, and so much love and respect to Peter Levine and my mentors, Abby Blakesley and Masheed Hager. They were just incredible faculty for the SE Institute. And so I've put all this stuff together. I've really woven 15 years plus of professional experience, but also, personal experience with these kinds of family structures and how debilitating it can be to not get your needs met.
Yeah.
Growing up. Yeah.
So what was that pivotal experience for you that put you down this path of research and training? And how did your own self-work support this interest?
Yeah. So a lot changed when I was younger. There's a number of things here, because when I was really little, I would look at my hands, and the only place that I had privacy, which was in the bathroom. And I would look at my little hands, like even if I wasn't busy in there, I would just sit in there and like look at my little hands. And I'm looking at my hand now and just imagining my hand was probably the size of my palm, and looking at my hands and thinking like, this is weird. Like, how did I get into this body at this time, at this place, and this family? And I knew, and it wasn't a cognitive thought. It was a visceral feeling of, I knew I could be an elephant and these two specific things would come up frequently, like an elephant somewhere.
Yeah.
Or like a little boy in Africa.
Wow.
Like I knew I was not this body. And I was probably 3, 4, 5. And then it sort of went away. So because the ego comes in and we
right.
more cognitive and things like that.
Forget.
Right? Yeah. And we forget where we came from.
Yep.
Right. And so I think we have to really go back to that, which was like, I was feeling stuff that I think a lot of people weren't feeling.
Sure.
And had an awareness of things. And I didn't have the word reincarnation, obviously, at 4 to describe what I was experiencing, but it was that. And I had other experiences, sort of being able to tap into other realms and awarenesses and consciousness. And like, I just didn't have the words. It was just just a visceral bodily feeling and awareness. So I think I've always had a penchant for healing. And when I've worked with intuitives and things like that, they're like, yeah, you've been doing this, not just in this life. Like you've been a healer in other lives.
It's in your first rodeo.
Yeah. It's not my first rodeo, So yes, I have all this training, and I had a really unconventional, with a decade of my 20s and half of my 30s was not your average 20-year-old. I was, initially, and then, some awful things happened and I just changed, and I rearranged everything. And I spent my 20s and 30s just studying, and training myself. And I'm trying to understand what had happened. And, I have an inordinate amount, and I'll just be honest, like an inordinate amount of training, that most people at my age and level don't have, because it was a way for me to, a little bit of escape, like it was, and trying to find myself.
Yeah.
So to answer your question about like, what is my path? I see myself in many ways as, at least at this point, as a vessel for people's healing, as something, as a leader, I believe people heal themselves, but I'm really there to help guide them. Like, there's a specific thing that needs to happen in trauma treatment that, people need guidance on. But like, I think that, I'm here, and I know that I am so temporary.
Yeah. How did you grab that grief, and how did you get into your body? What was the practice that you think really woke you back up to live your full expanding life? Guess what, y'all? I published a book. Your Life by Design, a Coffee with Nicoa self-care coaching journal, is now available on Amazon. This interactive journal begins and ends with powerful queries, guiding you on a quest for the kind of life by design you don't need a vacation from. I've included an in-depth look at strategic self-care to empower you and hold you accountable to really getting to know your true self. It's time to prioritize you. Use the link in the show notes to buy yours today.
Somatic experiencing over a number of years helped me get into my body and prepare me for sort of reconnecting with him.
So what is somatic experiencing for our listeners? What does that mean?
Yes, right. Somatic experiencing is a very specific trauma treatment modality created by Peter Levine that is based on neuroscience and animal models and medical biophysics. and the way that the nervous system carries stress and trauma. So I was deeply traumatized by his death. And then with an immense amount of developmental trauma, that makes you extremely susceptible to developing PTSD symptoms. So I definitely, I look back at myself, I'm like, definitely had PTSD and complex PTSD. And I kept putting one foot in front of the other, trying to learn how to figure this out. And eventually went to graduate school, found somatic experiencing, found my mentor, and started to learn to get in my body. And that built the capacity for me to stay with the experience. Like there's so much about his passing, his crossing over that I avoided because it was so painful that I just couldn't do it for a long, long, long time.
Yeah. You had to protect yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I didn't have the capacity in my nervous system.
Right. And so what is an example of a somatic experiencing practice, just to give people some insight as to what that might look like?
Yeah. I would say if we boil it down, the main practice of SE is to track sensation. So interoception, which, occupational therapists have been talking about interoception for years. So I want to just, acknowledge them and their field, and the wisdom there. And they've been talking, the Buddha was talking about interoception 2,500 years ago in the Vipassana meditation approach that he taught, or technique. And so it's the process again of tracking sensation, and then not tracking sensation, but there's a lot of other things like images, movements the body wants to make, emotions and thoughts as well. And then and this is the critical part, not trying to override that with coping mechanisms, desensitization, all sorts of things, breath work. Like there's a place of needing the nervous system to, like, we have to help it complete whatever it is, the thing that they needed to complete.
Right. Or it gets stuck in the cellular makeup of your body. Right. So
that's right.
Yeah. So if you're going to be upset, don't try to say, I'm fine. You know, and sure, breath can help, but what if you sat with it? It's like, I gave this simple example the other day about conscious awareness of something. And I said, let's imagine that you stubbed your toe. And instead of going, ow, 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 oh, I hurt my toe. Oh my, ow, God, I hate that. I just said what if you stubbed your toe and you stopped and just experienced the pain?
Yes.
And that changed my life when I learned that, and so you're right. It's about allowing the energy in motion, the emotion to go through the body all the way in. Why don't people do it? Because they're afraid, right? What else?
They're afraid, but they also don't have a wide enough window of tolerance and resilience in their nervous system. So I like to say everybody's got a different width bowling lane. Like if we went bowling, Nicoa's bowling lane is going to be different than mine, potentially, versus Sally versus Bob versus whoever. So depending on the amount of developmental trauma somebody's coming in with, where they're going to see different ability to be resilient.
That makes sense.
And so people often think this is a conscious thing or a conscious choice, but really people are almost always attempting to regulate their nervous system through whatever behavior they're engaging in, positive, negative, neutral, and I was a wilderness therapist, and I would work with kids who were substance abusing and really struggling. And I worked with a lot of folks on the edges of the bell curve, which is like the kind of extreme cases that traditional trauma treatment wasn't working for. So I got really good at getting really creative.
Yeah.
And so those folks, I would talk to them and I would say, all right, like you're using whatever, meth, heroin, like, tell me, what have you been doing? What landed you here?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, all right, so you're doing XYZ thing. Tell me all about that and why that might feel good for you.
For sure. And
then they look at me like I've got 3 heads because they've been through treatment so long that like everybody's telling them to stop using or stop doing whatever they're doing. But we can't, that's not going to work.
Right.
With these kinds of folks, and we have to get under the hood of why does it make perfect sense that you might be doing what you're doing?
Yeah.
And it removes the shame. It then we can start to get really curious, and curiosity is the critical component that people are often missing, right? When it comes to healing themselves.
Yeah. I talk all the time about being the observer of self.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And, I call her my tipsy BFF up there. She's like, oh, we're going to yell today. Let me get another glass of wine and watch you. But if you're not curious, you can't expand, and the body and the soul want to continue to expand and heal. Was there a particular moment that you can remember that helped you kind of have your own aha moment to help you step back into life with your grief, hand in hand with your grief?
Yeah, I had a moment. So I was, I'm an assistant for the SE Institute. So I'll travel around and help the faculty teach other clinicians how to do this work.
Oh, that's great.
And I was, and it was super fun. And I love the SE community. And anyway, I was down in San Diego, and we went to UCLA together. And I had actually avoided, I had so much, I also had other trauma. I had a major bike accident, with broke my jaw, my nose, had a traumatic brain injury before he died, before I met him.
Oh,
so, I had a major physical trauma there. And then, so LA in general has been this sort of, I'm like, oh, get me out of here. I gotta get out of here. I still had this trauma response, and it took me a long time, but I was driving up from San Diego, passing through LA. And I remember thinking to myself, so it was another kind of karmic moment, which was, I think I want to go see UCLA. I've been avoiding it. It's the most beautiful place. I think I'm going to go. And I plug it into my GPS, and it's like, you, if anybody knows LA, it's like, I was on the 5 and the 405, I had to get on the 405, and all of a sudden it's like the 405 is right there.
Yeah. So
it was like a movie, and I was like, I've got to change 3 lanes. I was like, safely, of course. But I was like, oh my God, okay. I'm going, and I'm on the 405, and then I see signs to the town that he's buried in. And then I said to myself, I was like, oh, do I want to do that? Because I had said, do I want to go to UCLA? Yeah, I want to do that. And then I was like, and then I see the signs, and I'm like, oh, damn it. Okay, do I want to do that? And I sat with it as I'm driving, and I'm like, yeah, I do. And I went, and I got the map, and it's a very confusing cemetery, and I mostly hate being there.
Yeah.
But I sat there, and I asked him for help on some stuff.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. Which it hadn't occurred to me to do for a number of reasons. But Nicoa, I got an answer.
Yeah.
And I was like, who's talking?
Did I just hear that? I was like, oh my gosh.
What? It was now as I'm studying this stuff more, it's like, oh, that was a mediumship moment. I have a capacity for this.
Clairaudience. Yeah.
Clairaudience, clairsentience, very much clairsentience. Especially because I'm doing some SEO all day every day with people. So I had this moment, and it was like a light switch. It's like a light went off in my, all the lights turned on. It felt, and I was like, oh, this will just, I wonder, I was like, is this just, and I just burst into tears, and had all these realizations about my history and what I'd been doing to myself. It was like a spontaneous awakening. And I thought, I was like, oh, it's just like a little aha moment. It's not going to last. We'll see.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And it's lasted. Yeah. It's lasted and lasted. And I just keep processing and processing and processing, and keep, developing these capacities that I have that I didn't know I had. And, and people can think I'm crazy, and that's fine. I know what fine. I know.
Yeah.
And
we don't care about those people.
And we don't care. And we don't care. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like people are like, I didn't think this was a real thing either back then before I had an experience. I had a medium approach me a few years after he died, I'd never met her before. Or I'd met her once before for 5 minutes, and then I was going to teach yoga in her yoga studio, and she was just showing me how to turn the lights on and stuff. Like she knew nothing about me. And then she's like, someone's been in the room with us for an hour begging me to talk to you. And I don't normally do this, but did you lose someone?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I was like, and that was a long time ago. And it was she had all these things that only he and I knew, dreams I'd had, how he died, the names of his friends that I'd forgotten about. And,
wow,
all this stuff. Like, yeah. And I just was so shocked. Didn't even know this was a thing.
Right. Jenna, that's so cool because, but I heard you say one little factor because people like me who do believe in all of it. Yes, I believe in everything, and I'll listen to the pendant and I'll try to, tap in and do guided writing, but I'm not growing yet. I like to say yet those clairs, right?
Yeah.
And you said something. You said, well, I was actively in the SE, guide and work. So your body was constantly doing these activities.
Yeah.
So do you think it's really critical? Because, I'm thinking of two things, obviously. I'm like, okay. So one is, well, we spend all this time saying, go meditate, right? Everybody meditate. Yes. And in a way, the meditation is just removing ourselves from our body. But you're saying, wait, I was actually having somatic experiences frequently, so maybe I have to be more in my body. Where is that balance? What do you think?
Like, where's the balance between
to how to access those skills that I think we all have them. Yeah. But sometimes are we either too in the body or too grounded? But you were saying that might have helped you foster these clairaudience and clairsentience and
yes.
I don't know. I'm curious.
Yeah. So what I know about this is that when people die, they just change frequencies. They're like on just to the degree that we can't see or hear or feel them anymore. And we have science based research on the continuation of consciousness and things like that.
Yes. And we're a low vibration. My understanding is the human being body is a low vibration. Yes.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so we are in these bodies that are very dense. And then we also have trauma that makes us even lower density, lower vibration. And then we're eating garbage and we're and we're eating, or whatever, we're imbibing in, whether it's playing violent video games or watching, all these things, like all these things that we take in with all of our senses, they're affecting you. Like every single second, your body and nervous system take in a couple 100,000 inputs. Every single second, and only 60 of them make it into the conscious mind. So we walk around thinking we're these super rational, conscious beings, and like we're just being driven by our nervous systems and our amygdala.
Yeah.
Right. And so in order to start to shift towards connection in this way, I spent years meditating, like 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
And and I sat a Vipassana course and I said, all these things, but I wasn't in my body and I had so much trauma that was unhealed that there was no way I was reaching any of these things and make aware of any of it. So really it's about clearing. It's like David, Michelangelo carving David. He said David was always in the marble. He's always there. I just had to remove everything that wasn't David.
Right. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
And so, and then we also have, we have ages of our soul. Like everybody has a different soul age. And so, there's different, lessons that people need to learn
for sure
in this life that are different from everybody.
And purposes too. I mean, it's funny. I do a lot of work with individuals who are channels and mediums and I'm even in different groups with these individuals. And someone said the other day, although you may not think you have that access, I think you're here to partner with the individuals that are in the 3D right now who have access to 5D, and you're helping them play the game more powerfully to enable it to reach the masses,
because I can play the game really well on the ground. I'm like, I know how to play it. I know how to talk about it. I know what corporations, I can get into any organization. You want me to call a president of the United States, I'll pick up the phone. I'm not afraid. So any of them, I'll call any of them.
That's right. Yeah, that's great.
And I think that there's value there, because I think I've had so many lives, and yet part of me is like a little jealous, right? I'm like, oh, I just want to sit around and channel. And I'm like, you know what? You already are, Nicoa. You're just doing it in that confident way to communicate with the people that need to be communicated with.
Well, yeah. And like people that need to kind of come down to earth a little bit so that they can actually help people, because that's so much a part of this is like, people, a lot of these folks, get kind of a bad rap because they're up in at least to people, it's like they're up in the clouds or they're making it up or something, in terms of like what people who don't understand this believe.
That's right.
Right. And yet it's undeniable, when I've talked to multiple mediums independently of each other that know nothing about me. They don't even know my name. I know how to do it now.
Yep.
To get,
without giving it all away.
I know that that's right. I don't even tell them my last name. They've got no idea who I am.
That's right.
So it's like that, and then they start telling me stuff that, again, only he and I knew. It's like, it's a level of, it's like, how aware are you? And it's not a matter of if it's real or not. It's real. It's just a matter of how much you can perceive. And this is my teacher, Dharma Mitra, always is talking about this. My main, one of my main yoga teachers is Sri Dharma Mitra, and he's one of the last living yoga masters in the West. And he's always talking about the senses of perception.
Yes. That's what,
right.
Yeah. I mean, you have a quote from him on your website. It says, "It is not you that requires enlightenment. It is the mind."
That's right.
And it's really, I love that. I wrote it down, and I focus on energy leadership, which is all about attitudinal perception. So there's 7 different levels, and I can be catabolic or I can be anabolic, and I am that choice at all times. So talk to me about, it is not you that requires enlightenment. It is the mind. So I'm not really clear on that. It is the power of the mind. I can train my mind to practice viewing the world from different levels. But how is that? So I'm already enlightened, is what you're saying. My soul is already enlightened, is what he's saying. And that this is just a literal practice? What do you think it means?
Yeah. And I'll let Dharma, I'll tell you what I think he means. I think, based on studying with him for a long time, and of course, coming from his own mouth would be great, but he's not here. So
you please channel Dharma Mitra.
This is that, like, the understanding our true nature.
Mm-hmm.
So this is about, again, it's the idea of David. Our true nature is equanimous and loving. Everything else is an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't mean that to say that people's trauma is not real, or that what has happened to them is not real. People tend to take this and then use it to spiritually bypass. And I want to be very clear about this, which is that, yes, horrible things happen to other people all the time. Every single day. There's horrendous shadow in humanity. And deep down, you are not your trauma. You are not what has happened to you. You are whole at your core. Oh, it's such a big topic. So you are whole at your core. You are eternal.
Mm-hmm.
You are deathless.
Right.
And then the mind, the mind and the psyche and the ego are the things that get fractured and
they're supposed to get fractured. That's kind of the point of all of this too. I think that for those who want to tap into their own spirituality or religion or whatever, I think that whatever that source is, we're all just an extension of it. Source wants to feel everything from, I've probably said this before on another podcast, but everything from murder to orgasm, right? I mean, it's all about having the experience. And it's the yin and the yang, the good and the bad. It's all just from one end to the other. All of it has some sort of value, which was where I even started with you, was what do you think the value was in this lifetime? And it sounds like you're still exploring that, but a lot of what you've shared today sounds like you're really nailing it. like I think
I tend to hold the stance of I don't know.
No, I understand that.
But the learner, I do. Yeah, but I do. I mean, it's like all the teachers were saying the same things, y'all.
That's right.
Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, Baha'u'llah, Swami Satya, like all the gurus in India, they were all saying the same thing. And it's our human mind that puts our projection, and we anthropomorphize divinity into a being with a gender and a body. It's like, it doesn't make any sense.
No.
It's source, So it's like, so in terms of like what I'm doing here, and I've gotten this from multiple, again, intuitives and psychics, and I didn't used to do that stuff, and I do that stuff now, and I guess I'm doing that stuff now.
Well,
I guess
it's nice to have validation along the path, and I think it's fun too. So yeah, and they just say, Jenna, you have a very bright future, but it's a big career. You have a big career dharma. Dharma means path, right?
Okay, in Buddhism, and so it's like this duty. There's a sacred duty that I have here to take the suffering that I have been through to support other people. And it's like, yes, I have my own life, and I have my own personal life, and I want to do certain things in my personal life. But like, really, that's the consistent feedback that I keep getting.
Yeah.
So in terms of what I'm supposed to be doing here, it's like, I've been having people tell me this for years. Like, you have a big career dharma.
Yeah. I think as long as we give ourselves permission to follow the path that makes us feel good and we feel led and compelled to do, I think that's why most people are suffering in their careers, is because they're like, why the hell am I not happy enough? And it's because there's some creative element that needs to be expressed. And if they can't find a way to do that in the context of where they are, then they're going to suffer. So it sounds like you found that path quite nicely and naturally, and your partner helped you get there even faster. So back to the value in all, right? And I love what you talk about. There's a book called The Art of Possibility by Ben Zander. Have you ever heard of it?
I think I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's what you're saying about the sculpture of David. He's like, I give everybody an A. Right? You get an A, and then I'm polishing you. Like, I'm just like sculpting you around your A, because you're already perfect as you are.
Yeah.
And, I also, you're making me think of Paul Selig's work, the channeled works of Paul Selig, when he says, your purpose is, I am here, I am here, I am here. I know who I am, I know what I am, and I know how I serve. And if we can find that how I serve, and it's really all love, and love. Right?
Yeah. Yes.
And loving yourself through this, and loving yourself enough to be able to serve others in love, I think becomes the ultimate goal. Man, absolutely. You and I know we could talk all day about this.
Yes. I mean, and loving other people really is about how can I be with you in your pain and be present with you and not turn from you?
Yeah. It's
not about, I'm going to love you when it's easy. I'm going to love you when you're good. This is, again, barring domestic violence and abuse, and
of course,
like that. But that is so often what people are missing. This entire world is missing being held in their pain. And people are constantly trying to have their pain seen and validated. And they act in all sorts of wild ways to do so. Right. And it's all this projected, disowned stuff that people have not integrated. Some people call it shadow work. Some people call it, healing your inner child. Some people call it like it's where is the darkness within me that I am not looking at? And I know this because I did this for a long time. I operated out of this darkness and this disowned pain for a long time and abused myself and was with abusive people and trying to fill a hole that's not fillable.
Yeah. How do you love yourself now?
Yeah.
How are the practices? What do they look like now?
Yeah. The practice now is meeting myself as often as I can, by, saying to myself, I love you just like as you are. And like your pain I see your pain. I'm going to validate my own pain. I'm going to also tell myself when I'm proud of myself.
Yeah. Good for you.
I'm tracking my body all day. I am, nourishing myself, whether it's through nourishing foods or exercise or getting a massage or connecting with loved ones. So there's a lot of ways of really showing up. And I think but it's really about, can I stay connected to myself? Can I learn to stop abandoning myself? If this is what I teach people in my work in this life, I will die happy.
Yeah.
Can I teach you how to be with yourself such that you don't need to leave yourself ever again? Because most of the problems in the world are coming from the issue of self-abandonment.
So were you talking to my therapist right before? I'm not kidding you. It's been like, as I care for my mother and my children,
yes,
and my husband,
yes,
and my life,
yes,
and myself, where can I stop abandoning myself became the question just this week. Of course it did.
Wow.
Of course it did. These are beautiful topics. I hope they will spark a lot of interest in our listeners. And, I, of course, will put all the information about how they can reach you, work with you, follow you. A couple of questions before we wrap up. Just any big takeaway that, like your biggest learning that you'd want to make sure I've got you at the top of the mountain. What do you want to say to everybody?
Please stop hiding from yourself. Please invest in yourself through therapy, through coaching, through trauma-informed practices that help you get in your body and stay in your body, not just override and desensitize. So many self-care practices out there are actually just overrides, and they're just desensitizing people. Even if they appear healthy on the surface, they can be fine and it helps people manage. But every single moment, most of the work that I do, I see people coming in with tons of awareness, tons of work under their belt. And what they're doing is a constant practice of overriding what's really going on for them.
Yeah.
And that is the human thing that we do to ourselves, that our big neocortices do to manage the pain.
Yeah, and to survive. And yet we are safer now than ever before and have evolved into the ability to be conscious. We're no longer running out the cave. So
that's right.
Yeah. So if we can be conscious enough of that tendency, if you can put it in front of you and look at it and feel it, then you can heal it. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And our bodies are still in that cave, so our conscious minds are not, but our bodies are.
Yeah.
And people are, so much of our, again, especially Western, like sort of pushing through what's really going on is all these overrides that are keeping people stuck. And even just like, people go to talk therapy and that's really helpful. And they talk and talk and talk, but usually, talking a lot, not being able to stop and really listen to your body and not being able to track sensation is just a sign of deeper nervous system dysregulation. So people are abandoning themselves by talking constantly or by being so externally focused, or, it's like it's such a subtle, nuanced practice of how people are leaving themselves. And a lot of it looks really productive.
Why am I laughing? Okay.
Because it's funny. No, because it's ridiculous. And we all do it. Yeah. I mean, we all do it. And I mean, I go into therapy and I still, I go into my mentor and I'm like, blah, 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 and it's like, yeah, because there's a lot there. And so, but underneath that, know that that's being driven by your nervous system.
Yeah.
And you can spend a lot of time, you can spend years and years and years, you can spend decades talking about that. But if you don't get underneath that, you're just going to be talking about it and on a hamster wheel forever.
I have a lot of clients that have therapists and they say, well, I feel like I'm just wasting my time or I'm just catching up with the therapist. And then the hour's over and I'm like, yeah,
that's right.
And then I get, and personally, I always get a little resentful to my therapist for not strategically interrupting me.
Well, most therapists don't know how. So they've polled therapists and they'll say, hey, what percentage of you thinks that teaching people how to be in their bodies is important? 95% of therapists say it is. And then the next question was, how many of you know how to do that? 5% were like me. So therapists are not, and coaches typically are not equipped, and they're doing their best. And I have to see a lot of people that get trained in one modality for one weekend and then call themselves a trauma therapist or whatever, facilitator or something. And it's like, that is not, when you're working with it, the way that the body holds trauma is highly complex. You can't just desensitize people out of it and say it's a somatic approach. It's very much an art and learning to track people. And so most therapists, despite very good intentions and big hearts, are undertrained and underexperienced. And, I mean, no offense to anybody.
No, I agree with you.
That's just the truth.
It is the truth.
And it's just, you watch people and I go into trainings and I see how much I can tell, people come in and I'm watching these therapists and I can tell immediately who's in their body and who's not.
Right.
And so it's, it just is what it is. And we're getting there. It's just, it's a very new way of approaching the work. And I really, thank goodness to Peter Levine and all of his work. I mean, the man has 2 PhDs. Like this is all he's done.
Yeah. Totally immersed.
Thank God.
And yeah. And thank God for people like you who are educating and teaching everybody about how to do this. And you've got so many resources available. I encourage everybody to go online and check you out, jennapacelli.com, right?
Yes.
And then, of course, I'll put it in the show notes. I'm going to ask you one last question because I want to honor your time since it took us 5,000 starts to get going today.
It's okay.
What do you want to celebrate the most about yourself and this life by design that you've created?
I want to celebrate my ability, the work that I've done to be able to be authentically myself and surround myself with people who see and appreciate my authentic self, and then remove myself from people that don't. Because I spent a lot of years subjecting myself to abuse and narcissistic abuse and horrific codependency and just super toxic behaviors and relationships with various kinds of people, and removing myself immediately from those situations now because that was a form of self-abandonment in an attempt to get my needs met by people that are not capable. And so it's both. It's like both, like my ability to be with myself and love myself and connect to myself and to say like, hey, here's what I do. And here's like, this is how I am. And this is, that's it. And like, I have amazing friends and mentors who love me and wrap their arms around me. And I choose to be with those people who are my chosen family and not with the folks that, when I say what I'm experiencing, all they say is weird.
Yeah. Right.
Or like, whatever. It's like, that doesn't work for me.
Right.
And I listen to that now. I don't continue to, surround myself with folks that are not healthy.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I want to celebrate that with you.
Thank you.
I mean, really, wow. And I have to say, you're probably much younger than me too. So you're doing it sooner and earlier than most people. And I know that the training has helped you, but you had to go through all that trauma in order to be the powerful being that you are with this real purpose-driven life. And I really admire you. I have enjoyed your Instagram account, and you and your best friend having so much fun and losing the car this weekend or something. That was so funny. I was like, what are you talking about? And I love your dog, Lennon. I'm just having a blast following you. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing your voice today. I maybe let's touch base again in a year and let's see how it's going.
Great. That would be great. I'd love chatting with you. Thank you so much for the work you're doing and getting this information into the world and all your thoughtful questions and the research you did. I mean, it's just,
I'm trying.
Amazing. So thank you.
You're welcome.
It shows. Yeah.
You are welcome. Yes. And I think both of us are compelled. And you know, if anybody has any questions, please message us. If you can't reach Jenna direct, come through me and we'll figure out how to get you the answers. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for a caffeinated conversation. Subscribe to Coffee with Nicoa for more stories from people living a life by design. You can also find inspiration on Instagram. Just follow Coffee with Nicoa. And check out our website, coffeewithnicoa.com. And that's Nicoa, Nicoa. We look forward to talking with you soon, and enjoy your coffee between now and then.